What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and the disaster around Disney's new woke DEI Star Wars, The Acolyte, continues to spiral out of control as it appears now Disney has been caught lying about their biggest promotional piece. You know, the show came out. People were going to watch it. If you're paying for Disney Plus, there really hasn't been any new content released in a very long time. It's like when Captain Marvel made money at the movie theater. Like, I'm not surprised by that. Now, the Marvels, obviously, I also wasn't surprised by, but you're paying for Disney Plus, there's a new show, people are going to check it out. But what people saw was an abomination. It was soundly mocked online from everything from fire in space to fat Jedis to DEI to the Force being female and giving birth and all this other absurd stuff, including who the executive producer is on the show. Could probably look into that individual. Also hiring their wife, who's a terrible actress. Just the show has been mocked unendingly. I mean, Critical Drinker is going to make a fortune mocking this show episode by episode, and I 100% support that. But it turns out that the biggest piece of marketing that Disney has, that it was the most viewed Disney Plus show of all time. Turns out that that was, in fact, a lie. Let's get into all this. By the way, just want to remind everybody, Wednesday this week, June 12th, will be the last day you can order your Father's Day gift boxes from Coffee Brand Coffee. We sell out every year on these awesome gift boxes. They come ready to gift right to dad. It comes with our medium roast ground, our camper vacuum mug, our Toffee brand toffee with almonds, as well as our velvety hot cocoa. Make sure you use milk for that. Or you can build your own. Make sure you get that done today. You can pick out whatever kind of coffee you want, flavored, unflavored, whole bean, ground, whatever you want. You can pick out flavored, unflavored. You can pick up K-cups, boxes, all sorts of stuff like that. Snacks, promo code DAD to save. Link in the description down below. Don't forget, today is Wednesday morning will be the cutoff probably for the orders. So let's check in on the Rotten Tomatoes score for The Acolyte. We see it is sitting at a wonderful 26% audience score. Not shocking at all. The show is, basically getting mocked into oblivion by anybody. Now, the critics are giving it amazing reviews because, well, it's super diverse. And it has been referred to by the team at Disney to be the gayest Star Wars in history. Who hasn't wanted that? I mean, you can look at the cast. There's not a single boring white guy among them, except for Leslie Headland, who's the most white male-looking individual on the show. But obviously, the reviews have not bounced back. And then we see this article from The Hollywood Reporter. The Acolyte gives Disney its best opening series of 2024. How many opening series has Disney had in 2024? Like 3? I mean, they haven't exactly had a bunch of shows for people to watch. Disney says Star Wars series recorded the biggest opening for a show on the streamer site so far this year, with the premiere episode recording 11.1 million views. The equivalent of that many complete showings of the 42-minute episode. I.e. the equivalent of that many complete showings of the 42-minute episode. Worldwide over 5 days, which equates to about 426 million minutes or 7.77 million hours of watch time. The Acolyte fell somewhat shy of the most recent Star Wars series premiere, Ahsoka, which drew 14 million views over the first 5 days. Somewhat shy. Bro, half. Oh, check that. 11.1 million views versus 14 million views. That's not exactly close, but no cigar. That is much less than Ahsoka. Disney Plus said earlier noted that The Acolyte's opening day gathered 4.8 million views, created by Harvey's personal assistant, Leslie Headland. Of course, everyone knows that The Acolyte is the gayest show on the gayest Star Wars show ever. That's their words, not mine, right? You see, Acolyte's not of Star Wars fans are intense. The Acolyte showrunner Leslie Headland is ready. Why? You can look at people that are actually believable, like Eric Kane. Critics must be crazy. The Acolyte is just another mediocre Star Wars show. The critics must be crazy. I've said it before and I'll say it again. That The Acolyte has aroused the profoundly odd sensibilities of the professional media class. I mean, are you surprised? It's pretty obvious why. You know? They're never going to give a show with a black female lead a bad score. That doesn't happen. Okay? You see that in the broken aggregation system of Rotten Tomatoes. The latest show from the House of the Mouse is fine at best, but you wouldn't know it pursuing the internet. Behold, 93%. That's a wide divide. There are many reasons for it. We'll get there momentarily. Seriously, it was a long time ago, 100 years before the rise of the Empire. The Acolyte takes place in the High Republic's final days, just before the long era of peace, blah, 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 blah. Unfortunately, The Acolyte retains many of the franchise's worst habits and does next to nothing with the new setting that makes it actually feel new. This could be set 2 years before the prequel trilogy and no one would even know. I wrote a review covering the first 2 episodes that I showed that I watched before the next 2. You can read that here. I'll catch you up on the story. Don't really care. It sucks. You know, you see, Disney show creators have billed the series as a darker delve into Star Wars. Critics have echoed this sentiment, calling the show as making bold choices. Inverse said The Acolyte is an experimental, galvanizing, standalone story that establishes new caliber of what Star Wars can do. Galvanizing, new caliber. We must be watching different shows. Again, I feel like I'm living in an alternate universe, reading these, one in which... Again, I feel like I'm living in an alternate universe reading these, which being a critic no longer requires you to be critical. Well, we know that. But rather rewards you for simply liking the right things and disliking the wrong one. One of the quotes gushes over the impressive, quote, fight sequences, while another says it doesn't rely on copious action scenes. But really, the number of reviews calling this some version of compelling mystery or riveting thriller or Star Wars has never done this thing before simply boggles my mind. None of this is even remotely true. I say this as someone who has been mildly entertained by the series so far and will gladly watch the next 4 episodes. But really, you have to be realistic about these things. The only ground being broken here is in the cemetery where they bury our hopes and dreams. Nothing here beyond the era is actually all that new, and very little about this particularly compelling or well written. It is, however, very, very diverse, and I suspect this focus on diversity drives a great deal of both the positive critical reception and the negative audience reviews. When you commit so utterly to making the social cause the thing that defines your show, you effectively guarantee that it becomes just another shouting match in the never-ending culture wars. As I've noted elsewhere, that there are better options to approach this, like Andor. Many positive critic reviews are, however, less crazy. However, they mark the fresh on Rotten Tomatoes because they include phrases such as, "The Acolyte doesn't offer anything new to the universe the way that Andor did, and it feels forced," and they still marked it fresh. It's not amazing, but it's not terrible. Still fresh. It's not the worst we've seen from Star Wars, nor the best. Again, still fresh. It's all bologna sausage. And then you get this. Confirmed, The Acolyte performs worse than Ahsoka. Global minutes viewed less than Ahsoka's U.S. premiere viewership. Again, everywhere, every major headline for weeks was that, oh my god, it's the most watched Star Wars story in the world. Everybody loves it. Except it managed to do worse than Ahsoka. Now, to be fair, Ahsoka was a known quantity, had a little more hype behind it. Deadline's Katie Campione reported that according to Lucasfilm data, The Acolyte's 2-episode premiere only attracted 11.1 million views globally after 5 days of streaming. The report confirms that The Acolyte performed worse than the most recent Star Wars live-action series, Dave Filoni's Ahsoka. According to the blog post on StarWars.com, Lucasfilm reported the debut of Ahsoka garnered 14 million views, making the series #1 globally on the streaming platform. On a footnote, Lucasfilm noted that the view is defined as the total stream time divided by the runtime available. The total runtime for the first episode of Ahsoka was 56 minutes and 25 seconds. However, the series released 2 episodes back-to-back in its premiere. The second episode's runtime was 43 to 57. That means the combined runtime was 100 minutes, 22 seconds. The Acolyte released 2 episodes, and the premiere date last Tuesday, the total runtime for both totaled 73 minutes and 55 seconds. That means total views minutes globally for the Acolyte was around 820 million, while Ahsoka was 1.4 billion, nearly twice. However, it's unclear how accurate the Walt Disney Company's reporting actually is. Data tracking company Nielsen reported that Ahsoka's 2-episode premiere garnered 829 million views in the United States alone. As noted by user X, now it's known the total minutes views dropped to 575 minutes viewed in the week of its finale. That was worse than Andor, which racked up 674 minutes in the final debut. Andor had a 3-episode premiere. Infamously, Andor, this is via thatparkplace.com, infamously, Andor showrunner Tony Gilroy detailed that the show was chasing the audience. He told Variety, "I think I was surprised. I thought the show would go the other way. I thought we would have this gigantic instantaneous audience that would just be everywhere, but it would take forever for non-Star Wars people or critics on my cohort of friends to get involved in the show. The opposite happened. We ended up with all this critical praise, all this deep appreciation and understanding from a really surprising number of sources, and we were chasing the audience," he admitted. Looking at other comparisons, The Acolyte performed far worse than Obi-Wan Kenobi, as well as The Mandalorian Season 2. Obi-Wan Kenobi premiered with 2 episodes in May and racked up 958 million minutes viewed in the United States alone, according to Nielsen. The Mandalorian Season 2 premiered in October with 1.03 billion. It even had a single episode premiere. Even The Mandalorian Season 3, which also had a single episode, brought 823 million. It's abundantly clear that this show is a failure. It's also a piece evident under the leadership of Kathleen Kennedy, Bob Iger, that Star Wars is bleeding viewers and fans are fans at an extremely rapid rate. While there's abundance of blame to go around, Kathleen Kennedy for greenlighting the show, Bob Iger for continuing to allow Kathleen Kennedy to greenlight Star Wars shows like The Acolyte, showrunner and former assistant to Harvey Weinstein, Leslie Headland, also bear a significant brunt of the show. She told the New York Times, "If it doesn't succeed, it's because of me," and I think that's really scary to think about. I mean, it's wild. You know, it could have been worse. I think that that's a fair comment to make. But you have, shows. I mean, you have the Critical Drinker putting 1 million views of his 1 to 2 million views of a single episode making fun of The Acolyte. That's how bad it is. The critic reviews obviously are over the top because they only care about diversity. Fan views are reacting to that. Obviously, is the show a 26? That's hard to believe. That's hard to imagine it being that bad, but it could be. It very well could be, 40. And for Star Wars, that's as good as a failure. But I guess they get to say, look how stunning and diverse it is. And you have a head actress who refers to their viewers as quote unquote white people a number of times. So you know what? I'm happy to see this show flow into obscurity. I'm happy for yet another Star Wars failure, because until they fix it, we must continue to punish them by not tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you leave a like on it. If you haven't yet, please do follow or subscribe down below, and we'll talk to you again real soon.